Hello everybody and welcome to this week's bonus podcast, our midweek podcast. We're doing a character profile of Emma Brooker. Emma, she's gone, Gemma.
Oh.
It's so sad. I was not going into 2022 expecting to have to say goodbye to Emma Brooker quite so soon. I thought she was going to be with us forever.
Thought she was going to be a legacy character.
Thought she was.
But no,
she's gone. She's gone to see the wizard, hasn't she? Down under in Oz.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Is that what we're saying, is it?
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. She's gone to get a brain.
And,
and now it's time to do a profile of her. I'm kind of glad sometimes when I put off doing character profiles. So I've still got my list of characters we've not done yet, and
yes.
It's like we could have done Emma, you know.
Yeah.
And
it's always nice when
it does take away the edge of, or takes away the sting of a character that you like leaving. It's like, at least I haven't done the character profile, so I can do a complete one.
Can you say that you said you, like as a general you then, but actually that's very
just
specific
me.
To you personally.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't think anybody else had that thought.
No. There have been times when I've done character profile of someone and then literally within months it's like, and so is leaving.
Like, what an inconsiderate dolt they are.
So inconsiderate when that happens. But never mind, we're not here to
complain about the
this
past.
particular dolt today, Emma Brooker, who came into the show as a real breath of fresh air. And something went wrong along the way.
No.
I'm sorry to say.
Are you going to moan? Don't moan all the way.
Well, I won't. I mean, it's just when I was doing my notes for this and I was looking on Corrie and stuff to remind myself of what happened with her. And it's like, oh yeah, this is good. I remember when this happened. And just as the years go on, it's like, yeah, they really did a number on this character in the final kind of year or two. But we will see that. I don't know, listeners, whether you will agree as we go along. And you never know. There could always be the chance of getting her back to redeem her.
Well, she's not dead, so that's the main thing.
She's not dead. I mean, I hear there are big spiders down there and deadly stingrays and things. But I'm sure she'll be fine. She's very careful sort of person,
very cautious. She? I don't think she's into...
thinks before she acts.
Going into the bush.
No, absolutely Absolutely not.
I think it's something to worry about.
Anyway,
should we do it then?
Let's run down Emma Brooker's vital statistic before we chat about what she's been up to on the show. She was born on the 3rd of May 1999, and one thing that I found particularly interesting when I was researching this is I didn't realise what an age gap there was between Emma Brooker and Alexandra Mardell, who plays her, because Ali herself was born in 1993, so it was like 6 years difference.
Don't try to trick me with that.
That's the sort of thing I usually complain about when there's a big age difference between the actress and the character, but yeah, tricked us there, love. Well done on you.
Comedy is ageless.
Very true. Her parents were Steve McDonald and Fiona Middleton, and she has many half siblings because Steve's got about a bit.
Well, 2 of them are dead.
She has them. So, Morgan Middleton, he's still alive and kicking.
That's pretty sad,
he's her half brother. Amy Barlow, half sister, still going. Rory McDonald, does he count? For a little bit.
Don't be horrible.
And then Oliver Battersby.
That's horrible.
Also
thing to say.
Dead.
I want to point out though that Morgan is her half brother, but they were raised as sort of full siblings, weren't they?
Because she had a secret
so
soap star past.
She didn't know that he was her half brother, whereas Amy was definitely introduced to her as half sister. But I think she treats them both as though they're full blood siblings.
I don't think Morgan's particularly has more than a few sentences with Emma in the past 4 years.
Doesn't even know that she's in Australia,
he probably
to be honest.
Doesn't.
And if he found out, I don't think he'd care.
No.
Come on then, when she first appeared.
She first appeared on Coronation Street on the 20th of April 2018. By gum, that's nearly 4 years ago. In fact, that's 4 years ago tomorrow. How timely. And her final appearance was on the 8th of April 2022.
Now this would wind me up.
339 episodes. Almost 4 years.
I want to be exact.
Almost made it.
This is my thing, like I said before about dying on my birthday.
Yeah, go over your Shakespeare moment.
Who played her?
Alexandra Mardell.
What, Shakespeare died on his birthday?
Yes. That's my one
ruined
Shakespeare fact that I know.
Imagine making all those sandwiches and cakes. Especially back in them days.
What, Mrs. Shakespeare coming in and then putting them on the table?
Going, I've got these from Marks and Spencer's food.
Yeah.
And he's just there going, well. Oh, he's died.
Dad.
Well, I can use these for the funeral.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about Shakespeare. Emma Brooker. So her... Nice.
Good job, really.
So Ali Mardell's casting was announced on the 21st of March 2018. Before being in Corrie, she had been to the Guildford School of Acting. They
good,
taught
isn't it?
her well, I have to say, because I thought that she was a fan.
Pretend to be sad. Pretend to be happy. I can't tell the difference.
Oh.
You're hired.
I'm not. I didn't go there. She starred in one episode of Vera before coming into Coronation Street, which we watched. We haven't seen her episodes. We watched an episode of Vera last year, and James Ryan was in it. She was in a short film called Chocolate Pieces, and that was it. So Corrie was really her big break, and what a massive impression that she had on the world of television viewers. Apparently, she'd been in touch with the casting director of Coronation Street for like 4 or 5 years before the part of Emma came.
Sneaky.
I don't know whether she'd been badgering them, or whether they'd been badgering her, or whether her agent had been going, "I will get you on Coronation Street."
Hasn't she got like insider?
Well, I know that she's a friend of Scary Spice.
Yeah.
If that counts. And she was on
cheating.
Coronation Street once. So I don't know. She's got some kind of celebrity connections in there. But yeah, it was the role of Emma that seemed to fit her perfectly. And her mum was a huge Corrie fan and would worry that Ali being in the problem, we're doing it for her.
No, being in the problem.
In the programme would be a problem.
But
apparently, she loved her, and she thought, "Oh, just see, it was Emma now." So that's always good. And in June 2018, after she'd been on the show for a few months, she was offered a 6-month extension to her contract, and she's been there ever since. Apart from now, when she's not there anymore.
She's gone.
Yeah. So Gemma, you alluded to her having a bit of an interesting backstory before, didn't you?
Emma was born after Fiona Middleton left the street. She had an affair. No, she was Steve's girlfriend, but then Steve had an affair with Maxine. That came out, so she left and took Emma with her. Nobody knew that she existed. Emma grew up with half-brother Morgan, and she was led to believe that John Brooker was her father. And when Fiona and John split up, she took Emma to live in Australia. And then Emma returned to the UK, went to school at Weatherfield High, and then we meet her in 2018 when she's moved into a flat with a friend, still unknowing her McDonald heritage.
Yes, and this McDonald heritage was quite funny, wasn't it? Because it wasn't too long into Emma being on the show that that people started talking about, is she related to
we know that
Fiona Middleton's character.
We knew that Steve had dated Fiona.
Yeah.
And we knew that Emma had black heritage.
Yes.
So it was obvious that it's possible, given the age also of the character. And isn't it interesting too that the character's a different age to the actress? Yeah,
well, I think when Emma came into the programme, I mean, I don't think this was the long plan for Emma at all.
Never.
But it's interesting to track how it moved on. But yeah, I don't think that Emma was given an age when she first moved in, and it's a bloody good job too. Because
this is why we complain about characters not having birthdays and stuff, but this is why they don't. I don't think they do it on purpose, don't they?
They like to
in case they ever need to have a surprise birthday party at some point.
Exactly.
That's going to lead to a startling revelation about somebody's parentage.
Well, before Emma had come into the show, like 3 or 4 months beforehand, Angela Griffin, who played Fiona, had said "never say never" about a return to Coronation Street on a Lorraine interview, and I think that was a massive coincidence. But because by July that year, literally 3-4 months after Emma had been in the programme, fans were already theorising about the fact that she was related to Fiona and Steve. And she was being asked this in interviews as well.
This was the following month.
Yeah.
And who was being interviewed?
Alexandra Mardell in The Sun. She did an interview in July 2018 where she said, "I've heard the Fiona and Steve's daughter theory, but that's definitely not true. I did have a little chat and a joke with Angela Griffin about it, and that was quite funny." So I can't remember how she knew Angela Griffin, or whether she just, once you're a celebrity, you just get everybody's phone number.
Yeah,
that
I think
has ever
it
been
downloads
a celebrity on Coronation Street before.
Onto your phone. There's an app.
Yeah, so July, she said, "No, there is no truth behind this theory." Then in January the next year, mid-January, she was on Lorraine. And Lorraine, I watched this interview last week. And Lorraine
I really appreciate this timeline. This is good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Lorraine kind of suggested, she said, "Oh, tell me, lots of people are thinking that you're related to Stephen and Fiona. What do you think about? Oh, we'll put it in a wee book for. We'll not." She kind of mentions it. Ali kind of gives a bit of a look, and I think Lorraine's like, oh, let's not talk about that now. And moving on. So I think by January of 2019, they decided, but they hadn't released that information yet, because it wasn't until June of that year, so 6 months later, that the Sun revealed that Angela Griffin was returning to Coronation Street, because she made like a one-off appearance, didn't she, over Zoom?
Yeah, in her pyjamas.
That's right, because that's what they wear in Australia.
Yeah, they're very chill.
And it was also winter time there as well, so probably like snow and everything.
Opposite.
So it was then that summer that the story all came out. So I
Really
think this is absolutely
I love that
a
timeline.
case.
Well done.
Thank you. I think it was a case of Coronation Street fans saying, "Hang on a minute,"
Manifesting destiny.
and then the storyline is going, you know what, we'll have that.
Yeah, why not? You idiots gave it to us for free.
It makes me wonder how often they kind of look on the forums or Twitter
we know that they
whatever
do
to steal story ideas.
We know they do.
We know they do sometimes, but I do not believe that this wasn't just a case of saying, yeah, that sounds quite good actually.
Well, I'm still make Ryan and Ali gay for each other, and that's not happened yet.
That's not happened, no.
And he's left the show now, so
yes.
R.I.P. to that idea.
We're just watching young Ali on Classic Coronation Street at the moment.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's Emma been up to on Coronation Street? 2018, she comes into the show as an apprentice at Audrey's salon. Audrey's in hospital at the time. Can't remember why. Heart attack maybe, attacked by youths maybe.
Funny
One
eyes.
of those anyway. But she
Can't remember things.
She needs somebody to help her out, so she hires Emma, who doesn't make a very good impression on David on her first day, because she's just generally bumbly and ditzy and dropping things all over the place and making a bit of a fool of herself, which is kind of her shtick for the next 4 years on Coronation Street. He wants her gone, but Maria insists she stay on. David soon comes round to the idea of Emma as a lady and character.
Lady?
And you know,
I don't think that was ever in question.
As a knicker dropper, because he.
That's not women's only role in life. You misogynistic arse.
No, he was being a misogynistic arse.
No, you were.
Point, because David had been through a bit of a bad time that year, because he'd been raped a few months beforehand, and he was kind of
by Josh.
Yeah, by Josh, and his masculinity he was calling into question, and he'd split up with Shona, hadn't he? Because he just couldn't, deal with life at the moment.
He was having mental health issues.
Yeah, so he decided to show what a man he was by taking Emma to bed. But
she was fine with it.
Well, it did kind of. I remember watching it, thinking this feels icky, and David, because she is quite a bit younger, isn't she? She's a good she's 10 years younger than David.
She's an innocent, isn't she?
Yeah, she was very much a naive young lady.
It's very weird because this was like one of the first. Was this not her first episode? For some reason,
the first,
I think it was.
if not one of the first. Yeah,
like the first time we're introduced to Emma, she's literally bedding David Platt, and it's very interesting that is a kind of, obviously, when a woman sleeps around, it's kind of gives her a reputation that's hard to shake, but Emma doesn't really have that kind of reputation.
Not at all. She's no man-eater, is she?
Dropped. Like there were no negative consequences for that. Progress, everybody.
Which is why to me, watching it felt like he was preying on her almost. But yes, he did later reflect on his state of his mental health after Aidan's suicide, and he thought, I don't want that to happen to me. He dumps Emma, gets back with Shona again. So Emma moves on to Seb, and this is a fun little relationship that started mid to late 2018. Because she wants to use him as a hair model in the salon.
Why?
Because Gemma, his hair is like
a waterfall of gravy.
I don't even have this written in the notes, but this is the quote that's stuck with
It's the only quote I'll probably ever remember.
This is the thing. This is a thing that could have become, an Archie Shuttleworth. I thought, I'm not wrong. Kind of
like her
going
giving
back to people
incredibly poetic descriptions of people's hair.
Well, yeah, she does it to Seb. She does it to Ken at the hairdressing awards later this year, where she just likes to run her hands through his locks. And I would have loved it if her thing had been just to go up to people and run her hands through her hair, or said what she could do with it or something. But they didn't go down that route. Anyway, he's a bit worried about what she'll think about having HIV, though. And also, I think he's going out with Faye at the same time as well, so she's obviously not too happy about that. So Emma moves on from Seb to Chesney.
Great move.
But this was, Chesney's never been the funnest of characters.
And he's certainly no Lothario.
No, but this, I think at the time we were thinking, this could be all right actually, because it was quite sweet because I think he wanted some romance advice. I don't know whether I think he was going after Gemma or something at that point, but being a bit too shy or I don't know what. So Emma agrees volunteers or agrees to be like a fake date for Chesney so she can help him on his Lothario techniques. But actually, she's secretly falling in love with him because he's such a charmer. Initially, Chesney just kind of wants to make Gemma jealous by seeing Emma, on his arm, but he falls for Emma as well. So by the end of 2018, Chesney and Emma, lovely couple. And the only other thing that I could find of note for Emma that year is when she went to the hairdressing awards. As I always said, quite like Ken's hair. 2019, Gemma, over to you.
Well, she gets insecure about Chesney still showing an interest in Gemma, and she dresses up and she does her hair to kind of look like her, which is quite funny.
Yeah,
she kind of chuffs herself up and has like...
she has her hair in like two little pom-poms, doesn't she? Yeah, that was kind of fun. Because she's just so massively insecure as a character, wasn't she? And she thought, I need to be like Gemma if that's what Chesney fancies.
So she sees Gemma lean in for a kiss with Chesney at the kebab shop, and she rushes off before she sees him pulling away, so she doesn't see that he was loyal to her. Eventually breaks up with Chesney and he ends up with Gemma.
And this was the very moment when it all started to go wrong for Emma, I have to say. No, it was a slow...
But it also went wrong for Chesney and Gemma as well.
I know, I'm just saying, it was her character at this moment, because I've got a vivid memory of her kind of walking down Victoria Street in floods of tears, and me going, oh my gosh, my heart is breaking for this character that's not even been in a show a year. Ali Mardell was so good at just being sad, because she's so sweet and naive, and you kind of... as if you want to look after her and say, it'll be okay. Mm-hmm. And I think this was the first moment where we saw Emma have a bit of a cry. And I think the showrunners at the time thought, she's quite good at having a bit of a cry. Let's give her more things to have a bit of a cry about over the year. And unfortunately, that kind of snowballed, didn't it, in the following years. So, next up, she gets a job in the Rovers. I thought she was quite a cool barmaid, but unfortunately a little bit of a victim of COVID, wasn't she?
Yeah, sadly not a great time to get into hospitality.
No. So
last 3 years.
Like I kind of sometimes, or not just sometimes, often forget that she even is a barmaid, and I think that she could have been a brilliant classic Rovers barmaid.
I know. Well, look, the whole story of Emma is a story of unrealised potential, if you ask me.
So she had a couple of fun events there, didn't she?
Well, she ran a Mr. and Mrs. quiz, and she also joined in Jeff during his magical act.
Oh yeah, she was in like a coffin or something. Did he try to saw her in half?
Classic.
And I got another vivid memory of her just like sitting up in this spangly dress going ta-da in a Jeff's magic box. That was so fun.
Now this was the year also that her dad John gets diagnosed with stomach cancer, which was terminal.
Isn't that what Laura's just had?
Yes.
I think it's catching.
He tells Emma he's got ulcers.
Yes, he hides it from her.
Pretends.
Yeah.
When she visits him in hospital, and he is shocked. She's shocked when he says, "I'm not really a dad." And then she phones up her mum, and this is when Fiona Middleton appears on the show.
I think she was. No, I don't think she was. I think that was.
She confirms over the phone that he's not really a dad. Sorry about that. Audrey suspects that Steve is the father. She tells Liz, who breaks her promise to stay quiet about it by telling Steve. Steve does not tell Emma, but he acts very supportive and stuff when she's making the funeral arrangements because, spoiler alert, John dies.
Yes, we didn't say that, did we? John does die. It was terminal. And because Audrey sees Fiona's picture pop off on Emma's phone when she's ringing Emma, and she's like, Liz, don't tell anyone, but I think you might be a grandma again. And Liz does just tell Steve straight away. And Steve is weirdly creepy around here as well, isn't he? Because he's just as a character who's not really had anything to do with Emma up to this point. He's now hanging around her quite a lot. Oh, I'll help arrange your dad's funeral. I'll do this and that for you.
Yeah, he becomes very paternalistic almost immediately.
Yeah,
he snags some of her hair. He does a DNA test on it, and then it's confirmed that he is the father.
Oh.
And then when he's at this poor bereaved child's father's funeral, he reveals this fact to comfort her. Like, look, sorry your dad's dead, but he's not your real dad. I'm your dad.
Get
so
another one. It's fine.
It's like buy one get one free, I guess.
Yeah, because do you remember? I remember there was a scene of him like driving into the churchyard, and he's got the dad flowers on the top of it. You know, like
yeah.
And it's like, oh, it's
poignant.
It's
something or other.
Yeah.
So Emma blames Audrey for keeping this revelation from her and decides to leave Weatherfield.
Oh no!
But she's persuaded to stay by Amy at the train station. And there's a very sweet relationship between Amy and Emma.
Yeah,
I would be quite
to
thrilled to discover that I have a sister at this age, because you don't have to compete with them when they're your children for the finite resources of your parents' attention, but you can phone them up and complain about things.
Yeah, and Amy was just kind of getting to the age, she must have been, 16 at that point, so she's just straddling childhood and adulthood, and I think to have a slightly older, cooler sister.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Was
great
really,
support system.
Yeah. Also, was that when Amy was getting pregnant as well? Maybe, I don't remember.
Who can say? So basically, eventually, Emma grows to accept her new father.
Yes.
With the help of the support system. Then, Emma collapses with a ruptured appendix after Dr. Ali gave her the all clear, because he was on drugs. She moves in with the McDonalds to recuperate, and then she forms a stronger bond with Amy, her half-sister. She puts off a trip to Australia at the end of the year in favour of Christmas with the McDonalds, which we all know was a classic episode. I can't remember what happened. She starts dating Seb, but things are difficult when Alina comes back on the scene, and it's clear that he's still sweet on her, and this was like a bad move. Wasn't it? Because nobody wanted this.
Dull story. Like I really enjoyed Emma and Seb. I thought that they could have been a great couple. Obviously,
and Lena and Seb were sweet too. And then when you put the three of them together in a love triangle, it became the most tedious waste of time I've seen.
It really was. I mean, Seb had much greater things in store for him about 5 months down the line, thanks to Corrie. But that did not work as a story whatsoever. And I think part of the character of Emma's problem was she was sometimes just put with not very exciting people, wasn't she? I think putting her in that flat with Alina, Seb, Faye, Craig, Tyrone, all these characters.
The thing is, a lot of them
bounce off.
A lot of those characters are very bland and kind of everyday people who are quite sort of benign and sweet. And Emma can't really be responsible for making other characters popular, but that's what they tried to do to her, didn't they? Yeah. It doesn't always work. It doesn't always rub off, does it? 2020. So Emma is still paranoid about Alina at the beginning of the year, who says, "No, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine." But anyway, Emma ends up dumping Seb and moving into number 1 again. Tragedy strikes yet again. Remember what I said earlier about them throwing sadness at Emma? Well, she was only there when flipping Eccles the dog died in March 2020. Ken's gone to Shady Waters retirement home at that point, hasn't he? And I think he wants to have Eccles with him, and Eccles comes to visit for a little bit and wheeze on the floor.
They're
not allowed pets, so
Emma has to look after her for a little bit. But she gets unwell, so she takes her to the vet. Vet finds a tumour and says, "Yeah, we probably better put her to sleep." So Emma has to be there for this poor classic canine character's final scenes. Sob, sob, sob. Very, very sad. But
it's one of those things. It's a weird situation, because you, as a viewer, I felt like I was just mad at the show for giving her these scenarios.
Yeah.
And it's not good, because it takes you out of the immersion of what's happening.
I didn't mind it from time to time. And quite a lot of these sad moments, it's not like I was going, "Oh, here we go, another sad moment." I was watching it going, "Oh gosh, this is really, really sad, poor Emma." Because Ali was so good at doing it, but they're just throwing at her. Anyway, Tracy gave Emma a pretty hard time for killing Eccles, in inverted commas.
Yes.
So she moves back to the salon flat again. Yeah, they do. She decides to try and tolerate living with Seb again. There was a bit of respite from the wall-to-wall misery that Emma was experiencing along with the rest of us in 2020 when she gets her hand stuck in a vase. Bit sad for her, but it did provide
Hilarious
a couple
for
of
everyone else.
scenes of jollity for the rest of us. I don't really remember how it came. It was something I think we said at the time of the podcast that they could have maybe strung it out for a little bit longer. If it was a Friends episode, it would have been the one where Emma gets her hand stuck in a jar. But it was a really funny scene, and Ali played it so well because that was what she was really good at. Just being like, "Oh, what have I done now?" Being other dits about things. But she gets it out, and then before long, she finds out that her baby brother Ollie is going to die, and that kind of puts the kibosh on any's hope of a happy 2020 for Emma.
I think what Coronation Street sometimes forgets is that an actor may very well be able to perform all of the scenes that they get given to a very high standard, and there's no denying that Ali Mardell is exceptionally talented and she can do all these. But the character is not what we want to see necessarily from the character, and when they do this, sometimes it works because it's a one-off.
One-off is fine.
And
Sarah Lancashire was also
Exactly.
fantastic, and maybe we'll talk more about a comparison of characters later, but Raquel wasn't crying all the time.
No, and they kind of got carried away, I think, with... Well, carry on.
Yeah, so she also does a sponsored silence that year to raise money for Ollie. For the next bit of the year, she's basically on a mission to raise as much money for Ollie as she can in his final months. One thing that she manages to do to get a whole bundle of cash is she takes it off Scott. Remember Scott Pemberton? One of the others. Johnny's dodgy criminal bloke. He gives her a wad of cash for Ollie's appeal. And then later on, she sees he's got a gun in his bag. And he's like, look, don't say anything about that. I'll give you an extra $5,000 for the appeal. And she's like, oh, okay, thank you very much.
Does it have to go to Ollie? Because
unfortunately,
I could do with this myself.
She's a kind-hearted
that's just
soul,
me.
Isn't she? So she goes to the police, and that's another massive crying session when she's there in the interrogation room. And she tells Steve even she'd rather go to prison than him not have the money for Ollie. But she's eventually persuaded to change her mind. And she's charged with money laundering, and she just basically sobs away through the interview.
It's so weird. When you look back at this, you're like, oh yeah, that time that Emma got accused of money laundering.
Yeah. 2021, Gemma, back to you.
2021 is when Emma struggles to keep the secret of Tyrone and Alina's relationship.
Oh, yes, remember that, everybody.
Because everyone cares so much about that. And
no, that was big. That was huge. The Tyrone and Alina affair-ish story.
Alina and Emma set up a shrine for Seb in Victoria Gardens because he's dead.
Yes.
Then she starts dating Curtis.
Oh, yeah, it's 2021 that happened. Not
and he is a doctor.
He says he is.
He's going to become a consultant cardiologist. And she gets more and more frustrated by Tyrone and Alina getting it on all the time.
They were rampant and randy and incessantly bonking away.
And they get Alina gets this stupid picture of Tyrone and Alina
in front of an exploding
car.
And that was another classic Emma moment where she's kind of hiding behind a pillow on the sofa from this silly photograph.
It's so funny. She's so good.
She's so
moments like
expressive.
That. Yeah, she doesn't really need a script. Following Tracy's advice, Emma plays hard to get with Curtis, but she ends up getting upset when she sees him getting into a car with another woman.
Oh no.
But then when she confronts him about it, he says, oh, it's a wine merchant.
He's a wine dirt merchant, more like.
Exactly. And then she and Curtis and Emma team up and organise a charity naked calendar for Ollie's appeal, and he gets really into it. But then
he gets weirdly into it.
And then
that's so I want to see your dad naked. And Dev and Kevin.
Yes.
Won't ask Curtis.
Curtis dumps Emma rather than tell her about his supposed heart condition, which means he could drop dead at any second, which of course was all a lie. And Emma thinks that he's been seeing another woman, so he has to come clean about it, and she's very upset that he's been lying to her. but she agrees to give things another go.
Yeah, so he's basically got this secret heart condition, so he says...
Like, he could die at any moment, and he's like...
Don't know what it is.
I don't want
Doctors
you
don't
to be
know.
burdened with loving a man who could die at any moment. You're too pure for this. And she's like, I don't care, Curtis. I want to be with you, no matter what.
Exactly.
So beautiful. Then Curtis collapses. Is this when he's trying to push a car?
Yeah, he's trying to push Steve's car.
He gets taken to hospital, and Emma gets frustrated because he discharges himself and ignores the doctor's advice because he says they don't know what they're talking about. And he gets very mysterious about this condition, and he doesn't really want to talk about it, and he gets annoyed with Emma when she tries to talk about it with Aggie. And then he says, I'm going to die soon, so I'm going to make a bucket list, and item number 1 is to propose to you, Emma. I love you. And she accepts. And then he says, I'm going to drop out of medical school to focus on marrying you. And then she decides that to cheer him up, it would be a nice thing to secretly invite his family to the wedding, because he says, oh no, we've all fallen out, I don't really want to talk about them or have them have anything to do with me. And she's like, oh, if he's not got long for this world, then there should be a really beautiful reunion, like on Oprah or something. But little does she know, this is a very bad idea, because she invites a man called Neville.
That's his dad.
And Curtis pretends that that's his stepdad, because he said his dad was dead.
Oh yeah, he had said that, hadn't he?
So he's got himself caught in a web of lies here. So he has to sort of say, oh yeah, I know this is... He says this is his dad, my dad, but he's not my dad. He's my stepdad, because my real dad's dead. I definitely wasn't lying about that. So then he says, I'm going to do the 3 Peaks challenge, and disappears off. And Emma's sort of bumbling around the flat and finds his pills, and he hasn't taken them with him. And so she's like, oh my goodness, I've got to make sure he gets them. But then she finds out that they're not even really pills. They're just a bunch of like vitamins and...
Yeah, because that's when Ruby takes one, doesn't she?
That's right, yeah. And everyone's horrified that Emma's allowed this poor child to have access to these very potent magical heart pills that turn out to be like vitamin D or something. So... This is when we have... This
is when his lies are unravelling, aren't they? Because you see these pills aren't really what they say they are, and you go, And at this point, some of the viewers had already suggested that there's something not quite right about him here. But also, we had that silly scene where Emma was watching... Ruby and Hope were watching this medical programme, weren't they, on the telly?
Yes.
And then there's a TV doctor in there that says a particular phrase that Curtis had himself said about a month and a half before.
Yeah, like something like epinephrine stat or some kind of like medical jargon.
And Emma's like, I recognise that from a month ago. That he must be a fake doctor. That was a bit of a stretch of the imagination, but it all comes out anyway that he's got factitious disorder.
That's right. Where you say you're sick and you're not.
Basically.
Very basically. It used to be called Munchausen's.
Yes, but it was a new term for me, factitious disorder.
Well, I think it was for everybody.
Yes.
So he's got factitious disorder. Emma finds out. She decides to go along with the wedding anyway.
Why not? She's in love.
Well, she thinks she can fix him. It gets called off when it looks like he's stolen a load of charity money, because Steve asked him to blah, 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 bloody piece of paper, blah. Everyone's drunk.
Steve says to him,
bank account.
Here's my bank account details. Can you transfer this money from my account into the charity account or something?
It has to be done now at midnight when everyone's drunk.
Just before you're about to get married.
And he says, sure, no problem. And then it doesn't turn up, and it turns out he didn't actually not do it.
There was just an online banking error. There was a glitch.
So, yeah, the whole thing gets called off. He gets arrested. And Steve realises, but he knows about this dodginess with Curtis. So he carries on the pretense that Curtis was evil. And then Curtis leaves. And Emma thinks that she's lost him forever. But then he returns for an episode, and he's just as bad as he ever was.
She meets him. She bumps into him at the hospital, doesn't she?
He's pretending again.
she sees him go to the cardio department and cardiology department, and he's there saying, "Give me my medicine." So she's like, "No, I've had enough with you." So makes a clean break from him for New Year 2022, and this is where her exit storyline ends. And there've been many great exit departure storylines over the years in Coronation Street, but I can't say this is one of them. It just got a bit silly, didn't it? It all started New Year's Day 2022. She's out on a driving lesson with Faye. She's teaching her to drive.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Right, I know this was a silly exit. And the most tragic part about it was not just the fact that it was silly, but the fact that it was so meticulously planned in advance. Because the seeds for this, like as you're saying, were like planted far in advance of when she actually ended up leaving. So it's not like he didn't even think about it. And it's not like we get sometimes with a character where they say on Monday, do you know what, I fancy a change, and by Friday they've gone to Kuala Lumpur.
No, we got a couple of
months. We got months
didn't we?
of this.
Yeah. So she's out at the driving lesson with Faye, and they accidentally bump into an old dude called Ted.
Well, hang on.
Go back to his flat.
With their car.
They
bump into him with their car. It's not like...
Ted, it's you. Hello, mate. How you doing?
They're making it sound like they just happened to turn around the corner and there he was.
They knock into him and they take him back to his flat. And he seems quite fine. But then he dies later on in the day, and they tried to keep it a secret because Faye doesn't want people to know that she's got involved with...
No, hang on. It's more complicated than that. Emma was drunk. They tell Imran that Emma was drunk. Imran's like, "Oh my God, no, you told me that. I have to tell everybody if it comes up. If anyone asks me, I'll tell them."
That didn't go anywhere.
Emma was in charge of the vehicle because Faye is a learner driver, so she should not have been impaired in charge of a vehicle. And the fear was that Faye, because she was on parole for trying to beat Adam to death, that she would go back into prison again, and also the law would not look very kindly upon Emma, who was supposed to be looking after Faye in the car and was just sozzled as a new.
Yes.
So they got themselves into a bit of a sticky spot.
They were in a bit of a pickle, weren't they? That's right. So they decide to keep it a secret, and this is where Craig starts being infuriatingly incessant in his investigations into this bloke's death. We've never seen him be this invested in a case ever before, but he wanted to find out, how did this guy die? Or did he? He was kind of half working out that, and he'd also found a crutch. That it was Ted's crutch that Faye had that she pretended she was wearing for a costume party, and he was trying to put two and two together.
Where it came from, anyone would give two hoots. Yeah.
Anyway, he eventually does find out. Emma meets John, who's Ted's grandson, at his funeral, but he'd been there on the day of Ted's death, hadn't he? Because she sees him, or he sees her through the letterbox, and there's basically lots of dodginess with a very poorly drawn e-fit of Emma, which gets released on the day of the funeral. She says, "Shall I tell John the truth? Shall I dump him? I'll dump him because I can't risk him finding out that I was there and involved in his granddad's death."
Well, also, Faye and Craig are like, "You're going to jeopardise our future.
Yeah.
I gave up for being a policeman. You can't tell anybody. I'm going to be put back in prison."
Yeah, but basically, before long, John and Emma are dating in secret. And I really, really enjoyed John. I saw equal measures, I would say, love and hatred for this character online, because he was also a bit of an airhead too, wasn't he? He was just one of these always happy all the time guys.
He was the children's TV presenter.
He was a bit of a Michael Bailey.
Like, he was just happy, charismatic, silly.
He was a really perfect match for Emma.
A bit dim. I'm going to say no. Like, they were very similar to each other, but in a relationship, you need somebody who's going to know that you have to put your bins out when the council come to collect. And I don't think that they would ever grasp that. That's true.
Well, I very much enjoyed their scenes together. And basically, he does find out. Does she confess that... That's only a few weeks ago and I forgot already.
Exactly.
She confessed that she was actually there when Ted died.
Well, he finds out, he realises that he recognises Craig, and they lied to him and say that he was on a TV show called Britain's Greatest Singing Idiot. And then he realises, actually, no, he's a policeman. Why did you lie to me? And then she has to confess. And then John comes back later and is like, well, I don't actually care that you killed my granddad because I got a load of money out of it.
Yeah.
Not that he doesn't really say that, but
No.
he's surprisingly cool about the fact that they've killed his granddad.
Yeah, which is very convenient for the story, wasn't it? Because when he came into it, the idea was that he was going to be going to live in Australia soon, so they had a bit of a ticking time bomb on their relationship.
They kind of progressed it very quickly because they were saying, we'll never, it's now or never.
Yeah.
It's very romantic. It's like, we won't see each other again, so let's just go in full hog?
Yeah,
whole hog.
That's the phrase.
Yes.
And so, luckily, again, very coincidentally, the place in Australia that he's moving to was not too far away from where Emma herself once lived in Australia. So they think it's fate, decide to go together, and then that is the last we see of Emma. She makes up with Steve and Tracy and Amy and say goodbyes, and then she gets a classic back of the taxi Weatherfield exit. Goodbye, Emma Brooker. Maybe we will never see you again. That's it, really, isn't it? Then do you see what I mean about starting off really quite exciting as a character, but then as the storylines go on over the years, it's just like, oh yeah, that wasn't really a good fit.
No, they just threw too many sad stories at Emma. They didn't play to her strengths, which was comedic, because they know they get the ratings and the social media hits from taking a sweet, well-liked character and giving her sad situations, but it's diminishing returns, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, the more you give her misery and the more she cries, the more we're accustomed to it, and then she turns from fatigue, but she turns from being a comedic character into a tragic one, and then you're going to have trouble.
It's because Corrie realised that they had a hit on their hands. They had a really, really capable actress, and
she's got charisma in spades.
She has, and
she can turn her hand to both things.
Yeah.
But I would argue that Coronation Street needs more comedy and less crying, because we've got lots of crying, and any character at any point can cry, but there aren't that many characters that are solely comedic characters, or even ones that can, convincingly carry off a comedic scene. Lots of people can have funny lines. That's fine. We see that quite a lot.
She just had the perfect timing.
Well, and
it felt very natural as well. That was her thing, because there are other characters like Kirk, shall we say, who are, put in the same box as like, this is a comedy character.
Yeah.
Let's just write him in the stupid thing to say or whatever. And a lot of the time it just doesn't ever seem to hit for me, but with Emma, think that it almost always does.
Yeah, because Emma had a higher hit rate because it relied. See, the thing is about Kirk is that he's also good at the physical comedy of the funny looks and things, but they have kind of worked themselves into a corner where he has to say something that's ridiculous, but there's plausible deniability that he doesn't realise what he's saying is silly. And they can't write that anymore. Whereas Emma, a lot of her comedy was just her looks or the way she reacts to something. And a lot of it wasn't probably even, it wasn't a line that she was reading. It was just a reaction that she had to something. Or a funny glance or...
With Kirk, quite a lot of his lines, when he says them, I think, but nobody is that thick, surely. And I didn't really get that with Emma. Most of the time when she said something silly, it wasn't quite so duh.
There's an element of sexism and ageism here as well, because Kirk is older. He should know by now. He's a man. It's kind of ridiculous that he's, got to the age he has and he doesn't get a lot of these things, whereas people are much more forgiving of like a sweet, innocent girl going, I don't understand. I don't know what this means. Yeah.
She's half Kirk's age, isn't she? But she did very much fit into the stereotypical ditzy airhead of a character.
Yeah, there's a stereotype that she's living up to, and
But she was also very switched on with other things, like with her social media, and she was a good hairdresser, whereas Kirk just seems to have no skills whatsoever.
Kirk is like a bumblebee throwing himself at a window.
Yeah.
And you think, I don't even know how evolution has let you get this far.
So let's looking back over some of the big character points that she had during her time on the street, putting her with the McDonald's in the end after all that build up and the fan created story,
the hype.
History for her. Do you think that worked in the end, putting her with
That
the
definitely
McDonald's?
worked. There were quite a lot of scenes there that she wouldn't have had otherwise, that were her with the McDonald clan. And I said before, when she left, what a missed opportunity it was to keep her on the show, because we've spoken before about a lack of diversity in the cast, and we've got the Baileys, who are the first all-black family, and they really are very separated from everybody else. Emma, she's mixed race. She's a McDonald. How in a generation or two, we could have had a family with established history on Coronation Street who were black, and now she's gone. That doesn't seem likely to happen unless she comes back from Australia with a little wee Joey. I think it was really important to establish family ties with Coronation Street, and I think it was a massive stroke of luck that the details fit exactly, that it was completely plausible that she was a McDonald.
Yeah, I think
they would have been silly not to have taken advantage of that.
And I'm kind of feeling a bit mixed on it, because there were some really nice scenes with Emma and Steve, and it was when he gets a bit paternal sometimes, it's quite sweet. But we kind of had that with Amy as well. But it does feel, looking back at those stories that we've just said, that a lot of her tragedy did come from being a McDonald family member, didn't it? Because of, McDonald Barlow's, that's how she got hold of Eccles that one time. And also her mission for the past 12-18 months was to get charity money for her baby half-brother who's died. And it just really it feels to me like if she hadn't been put with the McDonalds, she wouldn't have been involved with Ollie, and maybe we wouldn't have had her seeing so much misery piled upon her. But we did have the lovely relationship with Amy, which was great when we saw it, but I don't think that they made quite enough of that. And I think maybe if Ali had stayed in the show for a little bit longer, when Amy becomes now she's into adulthood, that possibly could have been quite fun. But
well, it would have been interesting to have seen a few scenes with Emma reacting to Amy's relationship with Jacob, and how's that gonna...
Yeah, because she knew that she was dating a Jacob towards the end, didn't she?
Yeah.
And she had to keep that as a secret for a little while, but there was an awful lot of potential there. And honestly, I think that had they decided to keep John in the show, and he was clearly only brought in as a vehicle to allow Emma to emigrate to Australia, if he had stayed in the show, that could have been quite a funny comedy couple. But equally, you could say, well, it would have grated after a while. For some people, it was already grating within weeks.
Yeah.
And at least although the silly story with Ted is an appallingly constructed exit storyline, it just didn't work, did it? For various reasons. My lasting memories of Emma and her final weeks on the show was her having a lovely old time with John, and she has kind of jetted off with somebody who is probably quite good for her, and I can imagine them having happy times together in Australia, and it isn't just some rando or someone that doesn't feel right for her. So it's a real mixed bag, but like I said earlier, I think mixing her up with not so great characters like Elena, Craig, Faye, and so on wasn't the best for her.
Those are with the best will in the world, those are characters who I would be surprised if anybody remembered 2 years after they leave the show.
Yeah, do you think people will remember Emma? I think
people will remember Emma, but I don't think she ever reached her full potential. I don't think, if you're comparing her to anybody, it's obvious that, we've mentioned already Raquel, a ditzy, golden-hearted, attractive young barmaid who is innocent, gets mixed up with men who don't have her best interests at heart, etc., etc. They're kind of similar in that way, but Raquel is going to be iconic. And
interestingly, Raquel only had 5 years on the show versus Emma's 4, so she really didn't have that much longer than her, but she seems to have gone down as an utter Corrie legend, whereas Emma is just like, oh yeah, I think she'll be looked back on, oh yeah, she was quite funny for a bit, wasn't she?
I think it's because Emma had so many. I know that Raquel had lots of different stories, but Emma really feels like they chopped and changed a lot of things.
Raquel's story was the story of her and Curly, wasn't it?
Her romance, yeah.
Yeah,
and whereas Emma's had lots of different bitty stories, and she was never like she was never in a big story.
Yeah, Raquel was very much like Curly. She's Curly's girlfriend, then she's not. Then Des comes along, and then there's a bit of a love triangle there, and then she marries Curly eventually, but it's not right for her, and then she goes, and that's and maybe having a long-term investment storyline would have worked better for Emma.
But the other thing also is that Raquel got a lot more scenes in the Rovers, and Emma never got that because of COVID. So her time as being a barmaid was sort of squandered because we couldn't have those scenes where, and you know, a comedy character thrives in the Rovers.
Yeah.
You know, one of the main reasons why Sean is still a bankable character is because he can have funny little quippy scenes in the Rovers where he's, you know, hanging around behind the bar making funny comments. Emma was the perfect character for those interactions, but a lot of them were got, you know, you couldn't have years of that.
And the Raquel and Bet relationship was a lot of fun behind
that's
the bar
exactly what I'm thinking about, you know.
Whereas Emma and Jenny, what do you remember about them two?
Well, unfortunately, Daisy's taken that kind of position that Emma might have been able to have had, because Daisy lives there, and so it makes sense for them to bubble up as actors and have more scenes together.
Yeah, Daisy's become Jenny's number 2 at the moment, hasn't she?
And Emma really could have had that position, and it would have been quite funny. And I don't begrudge Daisy, you know, having that at all, because she's a fun actress and the character's good and she's catty and interesting, but she's very different from Emma. And it, you know, it makes you interested to wonder what we've missed out on, really.
Yeah.
I don't know if Ali Mardell wants to come back to Coronation Street or if she ever would do, but it really just feels like she, at any point, this is the good thing about being a McDonald, is that it's almost impossible that there's not going to be, you know, an opportunity for her to come back.
Yeah, there are certain.
Doesn't matter.
There aren't very many, but there are certain families that will. It'll feel like they will always have some kind of representation there. Because
there are so, you know, there are other ties to the street there.
Yeah, and maybe she'll come back with Fiona sometime as well, because, like I said,
it's really sad that Fiona, because when we saw Fiona in that very brief clip where she appeared in her PJs to talk to Emma on Zoom or whatever it was, you know, and obviously the actress had to come in and, you know, get herself sorted out and record those scenes. I really felt like something else was going to happen.
Yeah, so did I. And that was like that was over 20 years after Fiona had left as well, wasn't it? That she came back in. But oh well, you never know. She was a good character. She got a Best Newcomer award at the BSAs. She's one of these characters where I look at her awards list and this is literally her only one, and I feel quite surprised. It feels like she should have got more awards than this. She was the British Opera Awards not going on in 2020 and 2021 didn't really help, but other ones I feel like, you know, in another universe she could have had a groaning mantelpiece because she was so beloved. But we were in the room there at the British Soap Awards, weren't we, when Ali Mardell was given the Best Newcomer award, and she was so good. And,
she was very much
like Emma,
as lovely as you would imagine.
Yeah,
she would be, based
not knowing
on
what to say.
Just love it. Just love her.
She was so adorable. I was so glad to be able to see that in the flesh.
Yep.
But alas, now she has gone, and her exit was announced on the 7th of February 2022. And it was a funny way that it was announced, wasn't it? She just kind of posted like a picture with a comment on her Twitter, because I think it came out that the Sun were going to announce it, or they had announced it or something. It was one of these unfortunate leaks that seems to be happening more and more in the last few years. So Ali had to kind of get in there and say, yeah, it's true, I'm going. Playing Emma on the most iconic street there is has been the best experience of my life. 4 years have gone so fast. Compared to other cast members, I still feel like a newbie, which makes my decision to leave all the more difficult. But I feel it's right time for me. I can't thank everyone at Coronation Street enough for welcoming me and trusting me to tell so many wonderful and heartfelt stories. So, yeah, and you know, a month and a bit after that, she was gone. So sad. And it was just, we were kind of pondering at that point. I think when this came out, we thought not only is it really, really sad that Emma's leaving, but this storyline that she is in at the moment, this is clearly her exit storyline, and that felt really bad, didn't it? But
she basically said she wanted to play another character. You know, Emma had a lot of different stories, and she was multifaceted. But at the end of the day, it's one character for 4 years, and as much as people who aren't actors think they go into it to become famous, a lot of them go into it because they genuinely enjoy the craft of acting. And, you know, like you said before, Emma really had 2 roles before. You know, sorry, Ali Mardell had done 2 roles before this. So she's right at the beginning of her acting career. She'd not had very much experience doing anything else. And it certainly makes sense from, you know, a sort of development perspective to say, don't kill me off, but I want to go and do something else.
That would have been a real mistake if they'd have killed her off, because I can only imagine that the higher ups at Coronation Street weren't particularly pleased to see her go.
I don't imagine it was met with great enthusiasm, but
no, because they know that they've got
she's very talented.
I'm very interested to see what she does do next. She's apparently already auditioning for new roles, and she said that she's up for anything: TV, theatre, musicals, even. I don't know.
Well, it's another one of these things where I think because we spend so long with soap characters that it almost feels impossible that the actors can do anything else, and we can't imagine that person being anybody different. But when, you know, they are all very talented, and I am also interested to see what she can do.
I'd really like to see if she could tackle a really proper serious role, just to see whether she could do it or how well she could do it. Because having seen her, you know, doing interviews, having seen her at the British Soap Awards in real life, it seems like she's very close to Emma in many ways. So I'd like to see what else she's got up her sleeves.
It's very I wish her all the best.
Yeah,
but I really hope that her future involves at some point being open to coming back to being on the street, because we miss her already. And she hasn't had a great run of stories, but she has had a great run of performances.
I'd like to have seen her do a little bit more with Gemma as well. And I know that we talked about, you know, it's not always she wasn't always put with the best characters, and Gemma isn't exactly one of the most popular characters at the moment. But I think that they were quite fun together at the beginning, and it's almost like they remembered that as Emma was leaving, because they heard Gemma kind of hop out onto the street and wave her off, didn't they?
I know.
At the end? It's like,
I think quite a lot of people were probably like, "What's Gemma there for?" It's been a weird time. It's unfortunate for her.
Did she and Rosie have anything to do with it?
I don't know, but
I remember, but that would have been another good one.
I'm just saying, it's unfortunate that the majority of her time on the street was during COVID restrictions, where it's a very different time, and I don't think we're really going to appreciate how different it was until we look back. But it was a weird time, and it limited a restricted time with. And anybody who's involved in being in the Rovers or anything like that, very difficult. Bubbling up with people limits your stories. I think that Emma is a bit of a victim of this period of time, because characters like that really thrive from working with lots of different people. Yeah,
bouncing off lots
Comedy
of different
characters.
How does she
really
react
do.
with this one? How does she react with this one? There are so many straight men on the street, you know, then having her saying something stupid to
somebody else.
Dev, what would that look like? Don't know.
We'll never.
Will
we ever know?
Never a straight man as
Dev's completely
the first
serious.
character that came to my head anyway.
Yeah.
She has left a bit of a legacy on the street. She will always be remembered for her pink wardrobe.
Really, really love Emma. It's sad
Bubbly
that she didn't reach iconic status.
Yeah.
But I really hope that maybe in the future she'll get another crack at it, because I really seriously think there's so much potential there.
Yeah.
And we wish Ali Mardell the best. Very excited. Want to know what she's going to get up to. Yeah,
well, if you believe her Instagram, she just seems to be going around the world looking very lovely in lots of lovely places at the moment.
To be young again.
Nice. And she's getting married this year as well, isn't she, I think?
Well, that's something to look forward to, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is indeed. Right, everybody, thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that little trip down memory lane for Emma. If you've got anything you want to add, if you
Favourite
missed
Emma
anything,
moments.
Did you love her? Did you hate her? Do you agree with our assessment of her storylines just slowly, gradually going downhill? And was she a victim of COVID, like we're saying? Tell us what you think. Email us at conversationstreet@gmail.com or get in touch in one of the many other ways that you can. You know what they are by now. But for now, I think we will leave it there. So thank everybody for listening. We'll be back this weekend with our normal, regular weekly episode. But until then, ta-ra from me.
Bye.
Goodbye.